to see about the taxonomical aids. We've seen what are the taxonomical characteristics. Now we're going to see about taxonomical aids. Aids in the sense tools. Okay, so what are the taxonomical aids which we have? Aids in the sense, see, how can we preserve this flora and fauna naturally or artificially? See, you have two types of preservation. One is in situ and ex situ. Ex situ preservation or ex situ this thing is that in which you will preserve the organisms in their natural habitat, whereas in situ you will artificially preserve it, not in the natural habitat. Okay, some of the taxonomical aids are nothing but your botanical gardens, okay, then your zoological parks. So we'll study about this in ecology in detail. So just to know zoological parks, then you have something called herbarium, then museums. Okay, so these are all the some of the taxonomical aids. So if you see the botanical garden, these two will come under ex situ preservation, ex situ hybridization. So what is that? Is that in ex situ type of preservation, you will preserve them in the natural habitat. So a lot of botanical gardens are established in their natural habitat, preserving their flora. Okay. So if you see Ooty, there are a lot of botanical gardens. Okay, so you will grow the plants in their natural habitat and you will protect them. Okay, zoological parks, yes, again you let the animal open. They won't be caged and all. In in zoos, of course, they are in cages, but they are free to move. Okay, you will not cage them and restrict the movement to something. Okay, if you see lions and all, you cannot put them in a cage. It will be in an open area and pit will be dug around. Okay, so that sanctuaries, all these things are some of the examples for the animals. Then herbarium. Herbarium means it is a tool actually. Herbarium is actually a tool. So how is that used? Is that the herbarium consists of dried plant parts which are dried completely, pressed, the water content is completely removed, and then they are poisoned. Okay, and then they are just like that stacked one over the other with all the details. Okay, for example, see, now we have roses. Probably after 10 years roses might be extinct. Okay, then if I check out the herbarium, I can refer, okay, there was a flower called rose, it had these characteristics. So the one which I found is similar to this. So just for the referral thing, the herbarium is very useful. In the right side, you can find the name and other details of the that particular species. Okay, and why are we poisoning the dried parts? Is that once you poison, it will repel the all the microbes or insects, not microbes, insects coming on them. Okay, so when you dry it, there might be some insects which is still coming. So once you poison, it will repel the insects and pests. So that is the reason. Museums, museums will actually it is a very rich source wherein you'll preserve lot of flora and fauna, and then also your cultural values there. Okay, so museum, if you see, you can find bones of early mans. You can find the specimens, okay, which are like put in the alcohol and then preserved. So all these things you can find in the museums. Okay, and apart from that, you have to know something called as key. Key is actually a tool which helps you in identifying the characteristics. Okay, for example, if there are two contrasting characteristics, okay, then I'll have a key, okay, with the two contrasting characteristics. So after analyzing that, I can place them either in A or B group. So key is a tool which is used for when there is little confusion. Okay, should I place it in this or that? So key has got the contrasting characters. So that contrasting characteristics is called as couplet. So based on that, I can analyze and place them in whatever family I have to, or whatever category I have to place it. Okay. So with this, we are done with the living world. The next chapter which I'm going to start is the same continuation. That is, it is more similar. That is biological classification. Okay, so we have seen how are we naming them. Okay, now we are going to see how are the organisms overall classified. Okay, so first is that they had, now what we follow is five kingdom, and six kingdom is also there, but still five kingdom is the most widely accepted one. But before that, earlier days, first how did they do is that Anna, AC off பண்ணுங்க. First of all, the organisms were divided into two categories, that is your plants initially and animals. Plants, herbs, shrubs and trees. Animals, there's only two category, with RBC, without RBC. Okay, so these were the initial methodologies of classification. So this was in no way related to kingdom or something. So it was like a broad sketch by which they used to build up earlier days. Next came in the two kingdom classification. Okay, that is, so two kingdom classification. In this, the organisms were classified into only two categories, that is nothing but Plantae and Animalia. Okay, then three kingdom classification. In this, you had three. You can retain this Plantae, Animalia. The extra one is Protista. Okay, so 2 stands for two kingdom, 3 stands for three kingdom. Okay, so and this one was the initial reference classification which they used, which is not widely accepted. Okay, so yes, three kingdom. Okay, next is your four kingdom. So in this four kingdom, I have four categories, 1, 2, 3, 4. Protista, Plantae, Animalia. So they kept adding one in each system of classification. Okay, so this is 4. And the last one, which is most widely accepted, is your five kingdom classification. So these numbers will indicate what kingdom it is. Okay, so in five kingdom, Monierans, Protista, fungi, Plantae and Animalia. So we'll be seeing about the characteristics of each phylum or each category in detail, but this is the general division. Okay, so now if you see, the two kingdom classification was given by Linnaeus. Okay, this three kingdom was given by Haeckel. Four kingdom was given by Copeland. These are the name of the scientists. This might come in one word. Okay, Linnaeus, Haeckel, Copeland. And the five kingdom system of classification was given by your R.H. Whittaker, which is the most widely accepted method of classification. And after this, we also had the sixth kingdom, and that was given by Carl's Rose. Okay, so this Carl Rose, sorry, it's not Rose, it's Oz. Okay, so this sixth kingdom included they were splitting this Monera into Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Okay, so this was given by Carl Woese. I'm writing it again. Carl Woese. He is the one who gave the six kingdom classification. So in this, what was the difference is that Monerans were split into Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. But actually, five kingdom is the most widely accepted methodology of classification. Okay, so this is how, say I repeat, two kingdom, Plantae and Animalia, 3 Protista came in, 4 Monera came in, 5 fungi came in, okay, which is most widely accepted. 6 Monera was split into Eubacteria and Archaebacteria. So we'll be seeing about the characteristics of each family in detail. So we'll do this with reference to your five kingdom system only, because this is the most widely accepted class. If you see this five kingdom classification, okay, Monera, as I told you, Monerans are the only prokaryotic organisms. So all others are eukaryotic. Okay. And then coming to the mode of nutrition, monirins are autotrophic. Protista again autotrophic. Fungi is heterotrophic. Plantae autotrophic. Animalia heterotrophic. So like that, you have lot of character. You cannot. On what basis they've classified is that the basic characteristics, the cell type, okay, the cellular organization, the mode of nutrition. So putting that all together only the entire classification is made. Now we're going to see in detail about each characteristics. Okay, we've seen the 5 kingdom classifications, that is by R.H. Whittaker, Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae and Animalia. Okay, so we'll be seeing in detail only about the first 3 categories, Plantae and Animalia. Animal kingdom we have seen enough, and Plantae you'll be seeing it, but first 3 alone we'll be seeing it in brief. Okay, so the first family is nothing but your Monera. So as I told you, monirins are mostly prokaryotic. Okay, so the cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan. Excluding, you have some exceptions, but generally, okay, so it is made up of peptidoglycan. They exhibit autotrophic. Some are mostly autotrophic, but some can be hetero also. Okay, so most are autotrophic. Then they have various shapes, that is coccus, the round shape, spiral shaped, okay, spiro, comma shaped, vibrio. Okay, so all these are the various shapes, coccus, spiral and vibrio. Okay, now based upon the shape of the colony, I can call them as strepto or stephalo. Staphylococcus or streptococcus based upon the shape of the colonies. Okay, next is that these are some of the common general characteristics, and they undergo mostly asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction it is undergone. They have the locomotory organs like cilia, flagella, etc. So I told you they're autotrophic. So autotrophics, they can be either chemoautotrophs. Okay, mostly they'll be only chemoautotrophs. Okay, so okay, this is all about the general characteristics. Now I will divide the Monera into 2 categories. One is Archaebacteria, the other one is Eubacteria. Archae is false bacteria, it's not completely bacteria. This shows some of the eukaryotic characteristics also, whereas Eubacteria is a true bacteria, it's purely prokaryotic. So in this, I will have your methanogens, then your halophiles, then thermoacidophiles. Then in Eubacterium, okay, my cyanobacteria, then rickettsia, mycoplasma, all these are my Eubacterium. Okay, so now we're going to see the main the importance of Archaebacteria. As the name says, one is, see, Archaebacteria, they show more of eukaryotic characteristics. For example, they have introns. Normally prokaryotic cells do not have introns, they do not have histones, they do not have proper nucleus. But this Archaebacterium, they are found to have, I'm just telling you the exceptions alone. So Archaebacteria, they have introns, they have histone protons. Okay, and then if you see the methanogens, methanogens can survive in the extreme condition, like they are able to manufacture methane gas from the carbon dioxide. So the methanobacterium, the best example is your methanobacterium, which is found in the cow dung, which is used for the production of your gobar gas. So it is an archaebacteria. So that helps in the production of methane gas and gobar gas plant, everything this methanobacterium is used. Okay, so they convert this medium into the carbon dioxide and methane is emitted. Okay, the cow dung, the medium is cow dung. Okay, so as you continuously feed them, they will emit the methane gas, which is a biogas. Okay, next is halophile. So this is halobacterium. So this halobacterium can survive in extreme saline conditions like near your seawater. Okay, the salinity range is very high in the halophiles. Okay, so they can survive in extreme conditions like that of, for example, halobacterium and halococcus. The other one is your halococcus. So what are they saying is that they derive the ATP from the salt nature itself. So salt is their energy force. So halobacterium and halococcus. These are the two examples. And lastly, your thermoacidophiles. Thermo is extreme temperature. Acidophiles is the extreme acidic nature. Okay. So now thermoacidophiles. The examples I can give you is your Taq polymerase, Thermus aquaticus, which we saw it in PCR. Okay, so and also some will survive in extreme acid condition up to the pH of 2 also they can survive. Okay, so that is more acidophilic. Okay, so thermoacidophiles can survive either in extreme temperature, hot springs from hot sulfur springs, or in extremely acidic condition. Okay, so normally in all these conditions a normal bacterium cannot survive, but this archaebacteria can survive in the extremities. So this is called as an extreme bacterium. Now coming to your eubacterium. Okay, so this is a true bacteria, so this will have all the true bacterial characteristics. Okay, cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is also called as blue-green algae. Okay, blue-green algae. This is because of the presence of the green pigment in their body. They can synthesize their own food. Okay, they are autotrophic, they are prokaryotic. So all other characteristics will fall in place. Okay, so I'll just apart from the normal characteristics, I'm just gonna list out the extreme characteristics. Yes, cyanobacterium, the major role of cyanobacteria is that they help in nitrogen fixation. Okay, we've seen in biotech and all. Okay, so a lot of acetobacter, okay, nitrosomonas, all those are cyanobacteria. Nostoc, Anabina, these are also cyanobacteria. So most of your cyanobacteria will help in nitrogen fixation. They help in nitrogen fixation. So these are most commonly used as biofertilizers. Okay, so this cyanobacteria is most commonly used as your biofertilizers. Okay, when there is an excessive growth of algae, okay, that will result in, this is blue-green algae, that will result in algal bloom. So algal bloom will cause, it will, the algae will cover the topmost layer of the soil and it will deprive the organisms present in the soil from getting the basic requirements. Okay, so that is all about your blue-green algae. Okay, so excessive growth of blue-green algae is only called as algal bloom. Okay, so next is, so they can reproduce through binary fission, phagocytosis, anything. Okay, and then they undergo binary fission, they do phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is cell eating. Then they also undergo fragmentation. Okay, so all these are seen in blue-green algae. Now next is your mycoplasma. Okay, this you have to know. Mycoplasma are the smallest organisms. Smallest organisms, and they are naked. That is, they are without the cell wall. Okay, so they are naked microbes and they are the smallest. They are without cell membrane. Okay, and the scientist who discovered this mycoplasma is Nocard. Nocard. Nocard and Roux are the scientists who discovered this mycoplasma. Okay, And they're also pleomorphic. What is pleomorphic is that they keep changing their forms. So they are pleomorphic. They keep changing their forms. Okay. So this is all about the mycoplasma. So see, if you see this archaebacteria, this eubacteria, they'll mostly have the common characteristics. But this archaebacteria, they are little different from the normal set of bacteria. And apart from that, bacteria also undergo sexual reproduction. Like they have F plus type and they have F minus type without the layer. Okay. So this, they have the locomotory organs like cilia, and apart from that they also have pili. Okay. So what happens is that initially the F positive will attract the F negative, and slowly it will grow a small tube called as conjugation tube. Okay. So what happens is that the conjugation tube will grow, it will start growing, and it will connect the two bacterium. So as soon as this is done, what happens? At the tip, you will find a protein called as pilot protein. This pilot protein will take this F factor to the other bacterium. So as soon as it is gone, here the new one is manufactured. So initially it was F positive and F negative, and at the end of conjugation, both will become F positive. So this is the sexual reproduction happening in the E. coli. This is called as conjugation. Apart from conjugation, you have transduction. So in transduction, what happens is that the E. coli gets infected with your viral particle. The virus will infect the E. coli with the genetic material, that is transduction. Then transformation. So in transformation, what happens is that the DNA, the E. coli will directly take in some foreign DNA. Okay. So these are all the modes in which I can give a new genetic material to the E. coli. Okay. So in biotechnology, I'll use these two ways. Okay, if you can remember, for injecting the plasmid, this gene gun method, transduction, all these we've used. Okay, so these, but naturally also it happens. These are all the natural methodologies. So this is all about your Monera. So I repeat, Monera has two main classes, Archaea and Eu. Archaea is like extreme bacteria. Eu is a true bacteria. So Archaea you have subdivisions, and in Eubacteria you have Cyano, Rickettsia, and Mycoplasma. Okay, so Mycoplasma is the smallest and it is naked. It is discovered by Nocard and Rox. Okay, so that is all about your